Hello, I can't actually tell if anyone else is here. Okay. This should be. Quiet, Birdie. Hello? Vicki?
Yes.
Hi, now you're on. I've got you on my phone, but I don't have you calling in on the video. And I see nobody else there. It's like, how?
Okay, now I'm seeing you on my computer. I couldn't figure out how to do it on my computer, so I came onto my phone.
Because actually it seems to be like toggling in between. So did you call me on the phone? Brody,
No,
stop
I did
it.
it through the
And at this moment, my dog is having conniptions. And I'm about to join a Google Hangout on air. Take me there. But I see 0 viewers. Like where, how do you, I don't see, I don't know that this is working.
I have it going in two different places, so I'm going to need to hang up from here.
Let's hang up from here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Hello? Are you still on? Okay. Exit. Okay. Brody, no. You have to sit down and be quiet. Join. Hello? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I see we have 2 viewers. So we're just going to go ahead and go with this. Hi, and thank you for joining in this Google Hangout. I'm Sherry Renner with LawYouAmerica, and this Google Hangout the topic is legal abuse as an extension of domestic abuse. And we have some special guests with us. We have Victoria Vilches, who is a Florida licensed attorney. Victoria Vilches is the owner and managing attorney for Victoria Vilches, PA. She was admitted to the Florida bar in 1980 and has focused her practice primarily on family and juvenile matters. Ms. Vilches is a native of Florida who received her BA degree from Florida State University and her JD from Mercer University. She is admitted to practice in the state of Florida, as well as the Southern and Middle Districts of Florida. Those are federal courts. She is also a Supreme Court certified circuit civil and family mediator for the state of Florida. We also have with us Sandra Brown. Sandra Brown is CEO of the Institute for Relational Harm Reduction and Public Pathology Education. She holds a master's degree in counseling and is a program development specialist, lecturer, and community educator on pathological love relationships and domestic violence, and is an award-winning author. Her books include the award-winning Women Who Love Psychopaths and How to Spot a Dangerous Man Before You Get Involved. Sandra is recognized for her pioneering work on women's issues related to relational harm with personality disorder partners. Her full bio, as well as many articles and other very valuable resources, are available on her website, which is www.saferelationshipsmagazine.com. Okay, so what we're discussing today is legal abuse. And for before we begin, I think it's going to be very helpful to define what we mean by legal abuse. And for purposes of this particular hangout, we're talking about the use of the courts for a purpose other than just simple dispute resolution. We're talking about the use of courts for a purpose such as harassing another person or continuing to abuse another person. And in the context of domestic abuse, since this is October and we're in Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we're talking about legal abuse in the context of divorce and other family or domestic law matters, such as child custody. So in that context, then, we're talking about legal abuse as abuse of the legal system to continue to abuse a spouse or an ex-spouse or an ex-partner after that person has escaped an otherwise abusive domestic relationship. Sandra Brown, can you hear me at all? Sandra Brown, can you hear me? Okay, now I know that Sandra and I have talked a little bit earlier today, and I know that she's having some technical difficulties or some technical challenges today. So she may not be able to participate. I hope that's not true. If that is true, then what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and get her comments later on, although they would be very valuable in this context. Let me just see. Victoria Vilches, can you hear me? Okay. Since we're having some difficulties with folks, actually, the people where we really need to be discussing this, I think we'll probably go ahead and reschedule this for another time when these difficulties can be overcome. But there are a couple things that, while I've got your attention, a couple things that I do want to go ahead and go over. And I wonder if, hold on, let me just bear with me for just 1 minute to see if I can okay, no. We should have. Okay. I am not exactly. Okay, I apologize. I'm not really sure why the other folks who are participating today aren't showing up, and I can't hear them, and I can't see their videos. So I'm not exactly sure how we can get everybody on this. But let's go ahead and go over some of the notes that I have for today, some of the bullet points. Okay, and once again, we've defined the parameters of legal abuse. And also, I wanted to just mention some of the harms that can come from legal abuse. I mean, why are we even talking about this? We're talking about this because legal abuse in itself can result in injuries to people and harm to people. And some of those harms are direct harms, and some of those harms are consequential harms. And by direct harm, a harm that flows directly from legal abuse are things such as, these are the issues that the courts decide upon. The courts in the context of family law will decide on issues concerning money, division of property, and child care and custody. And so direct harms that flow directly from legal abuse are those sorts of harms where there are where the courts are making decisions based on the information that they have in front of them that flows from a legal abuse situation. I've got Victoria Vilches. Vicki? Hello?
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 Trying to call in, see if I can join this.
I do not know. I know we've had 4 viewers, 3 viewers, now we have 2 viewers, and we're actually on a live broadcast. But I really do not know what Google is doing so that people are not being able to actually show up in this Google Hangout. And I thought it was going to be a nice, easy technology to use because I've used Hangouts before and they're super easy. But in this case, it's just not. It's not happening. So, but Vicki, let's, Victoria Vilches, did you, allowing? Okay, everybody, it's allowed, everything's allowed. All the settings are allowing everyone and everything. And still,
that's why we're lawyers and not IT people.
Right, and so I still only see and hear myself. So what I'm going to do though is I've got you on speaker, of course, and I'm going to put you up to the microphone so that people can hear you, even if they can't see you. Hopefully they can hear you because what you have to say is so important, and you will say it much better than I ever could. So so Victoria Vilches, please tell us about some of your experiences as a family law attorney in the state of Florida.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't know what was being said before I was able to join in. So where would you like me to begin?
Well, Vicki, I was just talking about some of the different harms. I had defined the parameters of legal abuse for our discussion, and then I had described some of the harms that flow from legal abuse, and I had defined direct harms to be related to those issues that the court directly rules upon: money, property, and child care and custody. And I was just getting to some of the consequential harms having to do with stress, mental anguish, reputational damages, loss of income from having to appear in court frequently, loss of employment even from having to appear in court frequently. So that's where we were. So we're actually at a really good spot for you to come in here and tell us, have you ever been involved as an attorney in a divorce or child custody matter where one of the people had an issue with domestic abuse?
Well, domestic abuse in the sense that I think many of us define it as physical and or emotional / verbal harm done to the other party. But you know, it takes many forms, and I think the subject of tonight's hangout, if you will, is essentially a version of it that's legal abuse. And I think, you know, as you and I have discussed before, Sherry, there are ways that a party that wants to cause what you're talking about, the consequential damage of stress and anxiety and potential financial and job loss, can do that through the legal system. And that's in a sense a form of abuse. That's not to say that people don't have a right to address their issues in a legal setting. They absolutely do. I personally am a real proponent of something called collaborative divorce, which is where the parties agree at the outset that they're not going to do that. The parties agree by a written contract that they are going to work through the issues, whether they have children or not, of their finances, time sharing, whatever the issues are that are between them. That is a beautiful method for ensuring that there is no such legal abuse. And that is often done in cases where the parties are willing and able, capable to go through the process this way. Now, the other type of process is the standard, more traditional adversarial process, which is what I think most people think of when they think of going through a divorce. And that, there are so many times where I've seen, one party doesn't have a lawyer, the other party does, or one of the parties is knows exactly which buttons to push, how to scare, frighten, intimidate, threaten the other party. And it's done sometimes subtly and sometimes not so subtly through the legal proceedings. Sometimes I have read pleadings that I have just been stunned that people would say the things that are said in these documents. Because if someone doesn't have a lawyer, they certainly don't have the guidance to know what's appropriate or not appropriate to put in a legal document.
Right, right. Okay. So, Bill Eddy is an attorney and social worker in California, and he is the co-founder of the High Conflict Institute there in California. And this is, I've taken an excerpt from one of his articles that he published on his website, which is www.billeddy.com. And his article is entitled "How Personality Disorders Drive Family Court Litigation." And I understand that we're kind of skipping over Sandra Brown's role in this hangout, where she would define for us what really domestic abuse is, and personality disorders and how they're related, and how these personality disorders play out in a domestic abuse situation, and then how those same dynamics are reflected in a legal abuse scenario. So we'll have to go ahead and just get her notes later on and just add this to perhaps to the website. But from Bill Eddy's article, How Personality Disorders Drive Family Court Litigation, this is a quote from that article. "Family court is perfectly suited to the fantasies of someone with a personality disorder. There is an all-powerful person, the judge, who will punish or control the other spouse. The focus of the court process is perceived as fixing blame, and many with personality disorders are experts at blame. There is a professional ally who will champion their cause," meaning their attorney, or if they don't have an attorney, the judge. "A case is properly prepared by gathering statements from allies, family, friends, and professionals. Seeking to gain the allegiance of the children is automatic. They too are seen as either allies or enemies. A simple admonition will not stop this. Generally, those with personality disorders are highly skilled at and invested in the adversarial process." Do you agree with that?
I absolutely do. That really captures the essence of what I've seen going on. Can you still hear me, Sherry?
Yes, I can. Mm-hmm. Oh. Sorry, I lost Vicki there for just a moment. We're calling her back. We're calling her back. I'm so sorry. Okay. I think she might not realize that we've lost her. Okay. Oh, I think maybe she knows now. Please call back in, Vicki. We're trying to get her again. you are. Okay, I apologize for that. Okay, we were just talking about what your comments following the Bill Eddy quote. And did you agree with that? Okay.
Right. Are you still there?
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen several personality types that, you know, this type of an adversarial system really feeds into exactly what and it's unfortunate, but I'm not sure that type of individual is the candidate for the economic goals. They seem to really thrive on the chaos, the controversy, and the strife that you can absolutely manifest in that system. So it's, you know, it's plays right into it.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I keep losing the speaker on the phone. It's just, it is, okay. And without the speaker, I can't get your voice loud enough to so that it can go through the webcam here. Okay. 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 So technologic, no, because see now you're I'm talking to Victoria Vilches right now, because what happens is whenever I get a call come in, you go off speaker and I don't know how to get you back on speaker. So that's that. So I've been trying to get you back on speaker. Can you hear me now? Vicky? Oh, okay. So that's what, so that while you're talking, it's not going through the webcam loud enough. So anyway, okay. So that we'll need all of our practice runs were for naught, apparently. Okay, then what I'm going to do at this point is to get Sandra Brown on the line and get her input on these. And please stand by, and we'll hopefully give you a call back in just a moment if that's okay with you. Although we're almost at the half-hour point right now, but please stand by. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Hello.
Hello, Sandra. This is Sherry Renner.
Hi.
What I'm hoping is that Google will allow me to heavily edit this video, and then just have you know, all the great information that's being spoken. And so what I have right now is I have you on speaker, and I'm holding up the phone near the webcam, near the microphone, so that what you say over the speaker will hopefully come through. Hello?
Okay.
I don't know why why is there a phone, a ringing telephone going on now?
What I'm hoping is that Google will allow me to
That's the video call on your end?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's coming through again over the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so I would say end the video call. Okay. And then just, okay, all right, great. Now, and at this point, it looks like we still have 3 hardy viewers. And so I thank you, viewers, for putting up with us with this, these technical difficulties, because the information, regardless of the technology, the information is excellent. Okay, so Sandra, well, what we've done is we've defined legal abuse. Victoria Vilches spoke for a few minutes. I'm not sure if you could hear what she was saying.
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Then at this point, I think that we need to kind of back up a little bit and ask you to help us out and help us to understand what domestic abuse is.
Well, domestic abuse is anything that harms someone emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, sexually, or financially. And it's not merely physical abuse. In fact, the physical aspect of it is probably a much smaller percentage than all the other abuses that are combined.
Okay. And you've done a lot of work in studying people who abuse. And have you found any particular personality characteristics that are common among people who abuse others in domestic situations?
Well, yeah, and that's mostly what the Institute deals with, are the cases that Bill Eddy that you were talking about with the High Conflict Institute would call high conflict cases. And that is relational situations in which at least one party has an intractable personality disorder. And what's so harmful to that is that the basic part of the personality disorder is that enjoyment of the adversarial process. And so, as Vicki was saying, that the court is a great playground for them. These personality disorders, enjoy power control, manipulation, intimidation, and they feed all of that. And so it's really bad if you have a personality disorder person who also has money to throw at the situation in the legal abuse arena, because these are what end up being called high conflict cases. That I had one client that had been to court 60 times, and they were not even to the point of child custody discussions. And so, unfortunately, the personality disorder people find the whole legal system yet one more place in order, a place to engage with the person emotionally, verbally, financially, through power and control methods.
So even when someone has escaped an abusive relationship, if they have to continue on, say, in court proceedings with this person, they can expect to have to deal with the same types of personality characteristics and expressions of their personality through the courts that they thought they escaped by getting out of the relationship.
Right, exactly. And that's really what we try to help them understand, is that a personality disorder is permanent. This is not situational stress. So, what happens in the context of the relationship is going to happen in the context of all contacts that the personality disorder person has with them, and which becomes legal abuse. When they have money and can continue to drag people through court just to have contact, just to watch her or him, lose their job, or have panic or anxiety or post-traumatic stress reactions, that's what they're going to do. And that the context of the personality disorder does not change merely because she's had a relationship with that person, or because they're in court, or because there's a custody agreement. I mean, these are the people that go on to fail mediation, anger management, battery intervention, everything that the court throws at them, which is why, Bill Eddy wrote about personality disorders in the court and even started a court mediation sort of case management program in California, was to deal with the complexities and the unusual dynamics that happen when a personality disorder person gets the power and control through the court system through legal abuse.
Okay. Do you, in working with people who have come out of domestic abuse situations, and they're now in a legal abuse situation, do you find that the courts and the judges understand these dynamics well enough to help to protect the non-abusive party in the proceedings?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That they don't get it. Done lectures to judges, prosecutors, etc. It's starting to get more airplay. I mean, the longer that these really high conflict cases are in the media and stuff like that, we are slowly becoming, as a culture and a court, aware of that. But we've got a really long way to go. I mean, when someone is in court 60 times before custody is even decided, clearly the court system doesn't have a clue that there is pathology there in the mix that's blocking the progress in the court case.
And the court really should be aware that it's being used as a proxy, as a weapon, basically. So I guess Bill Eddy is doing some really important work, and we will do what we can to help further the education so that the courts can stop, even if not to protect the non-abusive partner or party in the litigation, but just to even stop itself from being used as a weapon of abuse. I think it has a duty to the citizens of this country as the third branch of government to make sure that it's not being used in that way and abused in that way. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, the survivors who already have post-traumatic stress to be dragged through court, that many times just activates the PTSD over and over again. And, it causes the person to decompensate, then they don't have the support of the court system, the court. It amazes me that people with personality disorders and other forms of pathology, that the universe is strangely tilted to their benefit. And now, even without, mounds of evidence in court, what ends up happening in these court cases is jaw-dropping. And so, the poor survivors who already have PTSD and then are directed for over and over again, having to face, the person who has harmed them in court repeatedly triggers off their PTSD, which causes them to decompensate, which makes them look like, an unfit parent or a hand-wringing neurotic mess in court. And that's exactly the goal of the personality disorder partner in all of it.
That's the goal, and they're being successful. Do you have any? Pardon?
They're very successful. Yeah, with it. Like I said, I mean, I have seen very few cases in 25 years that the court gets it, calls them on what they're doing, you know, does a big reversal, and the survivor walks away validated with kids, child support, and a restraining order. That just still is not happening today.
It's not happening. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have any tips, any advice, any words of wisdom, anything for anybody who might view this or read a transcript of this later on? Anybody who's caught up in a legal abuse scenario? Do you have any tips for them for what they can do to survive this chapter or this part of this relationship?
Well, especially for people that have post-traumatic stress disorder and where they are facing, going to court multiple times, mostly to cause decompensation in them. When they get the sense of that, there is the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA, and PTSD is covered under the ADA. And there is a person named Dr. Karen Huffer, H-U-F-F-E-R, that wrote a book called Legal Abuse Syndrome, and she has a website, I think, legalabusesyndrome.com, that creates these court accommodations, these ADA accommodations for people that have PTSD to try to keep some of the court proceedings separate, where the victim is not constantly in contact with the person who's trying to have contact with them through continued court contact. So there are some ways of putting a buffer in between that. And then, of course, BillEddie.com or the High Conflict Institute. He's written books about personality disorders in court. And, if people are facing that, they really need to understand the disorder, what this disorder does in court, and how to get your attorney up to speed on that. And those two, I think, are really good resources.
Okay, great. I have one other question for you, and this has to do with something called the evidentiary abuse affidavit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The evidentiary abuse affidavit, we call it the EAA, was created by the Institute's colleague, Susan Murphy Milano, a couple of years ago. And it was created based on the Stacey Pearson case. And it is a documentation process that documents the abuse in case that the person goes missing, is put in a coma, or is killed, that prosecutors have the kind of information that can flush out the case, and result in a prosecution. People can find out more information about how to use that process, the documentation process, at documenttheabuse.com. It's available as a book format where the sheets and the process can be copied and filled out. It walks you through the kinds of documentation you need, and then what to do with that documentation when you're done, where it goes, to what safe people, to what attorneys, to what places in case of your demise. Nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to really face that abuse can end that way. But, personality disorders are the people that have the impulse control problems that end up in fatalities. The EAA is also available through the iPhone, through an iPhone app that's called iEAA. And it's actually one of the leading personal safety apps available through the iPhone store, so people can download it to their phone. It'll walk it through the same information, the same process, or they can go to documenttheabuse.com and get it that way.
Okay, I'm going to put some information and links on the website for that. And is there anything else that you wanted to say about legal abuse, Sandra?
Well, just that it is an insidious form of continued contact. So many survivors have worked so hard at going what we call no contact. Stopping the contact, having as little contact as possible, except through stuff they have to exchange children or whatever. And that is an insidious form of continued abuse, triggering of post-traumatic stress, and manipulative contact that the court needs to recognize.
Yeah. Okay, and we're going to see what we can do to make that happen, or to help that happen. And so, thank you, Sandra, and thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And last but not least, we're going to give a survivor of legal abuse a call to get him to participate and share his experiences with us. He has some interesting things to say for sure. Giving him a call right now. I'm just going to say, please, I know that you're there, John. So please hang up from the video call, because what we're going to do is just get you on the phone, just like we've done with the others.
Hey.
Hello, John. How are you? Some technical challenges, but we are undaunted.
You're undaunted. That's good.
Undaunted. We've got too much to say. We've got too much to do here to let some technological difficulties and some speed bumps stop us. So
that's good.
So
that's good.
So you've listened to what Victoria Vilches, the attorney, had to say, and you've listened to Sandra Brown. So tell us a little bit about why you're participating in this hangout.
Couple reasons. I had the opportunity to obviously work with you and get some advice, and took on a lot of these issues I've dealt with, and still am dealing with a couple of these issues firsthand. And after going through the court system, the legal system, and being very frustrated with it, I took matters into my own hands and completely turned the situation around, dealing with somebody who is abusing the legal system.
Okay, so you were married to this person?
Yeah, I was married for 20 years in an abusive relationship. When we talk about abusive relationships, I know a lot of times you always think that, it's the guy that's doing the abusing. And, I think for a lot of men, they become embarrassed, or you don't want to speak up when you are the victim of abuse. And I think it was pointed out very eloquently that abuse takes many different forms. It's not just physical abuse. It's a lot of other things that go along with it. And both men and women are involved in it. And I got out of an abusive relationship, and after getting out of the abusive relationship, the abuse really has continued through the court system for 5 years, and have had to deal with going through the court system and dealing with that for about 5 years. But it took some expertise. It took some people to show me how the court system works, to turn around and actually, I guess, open the court's eyes to what was really going on.
Okay, so let's back up just a little bit. You classify what you've been going through with the courts as legal abuse. Can you tell us why you believe that label fits what you've been going through?
Well, because I was being taken back to court on a consistent basis for, and she was trying to claim it was unpaid legal, unpaid bills, unpaid child support, whatever the case may be, which really was not true. There were things that they kept claiming that were not happening, which I had proven, especially in my last episode, with documentation, that yes, indeed, I had done it. I had paid for the things that I said I was going to pay for. But like was brought up earlier, I think was the point of one spouse not communicating like they should, which is part of your agreement. They use the court system as their communication and the threats of taking you to court. So if they would go into court, we would schedule a 30-minute hearing, which of course was never enough time to get through all the documents. They would pile page upon page of documentation in front of the judge, have a 30-minute hearing. He'd have to just basically take them at their word and would turn around and award them a judgment.
Okay. So, so you have been representing yourself. Is that what has been happening?
Yeah. So finally, the last time that this happened, I took matters into my own hands and I represented myself. I had gone through 3 attorneys and was not getting anywhere, so I represented myself. I had all my documentation in order, and I took matters really into my own hands and made sure that there was enough time slated for the court. The other thing that I did was when I filed a counter motion, I made sure that I was very clear, I was very concise with what was going on. And the judge actually read the documentation because it was right in front of him. It was right up front, almost the first thing in the court documentation. So when we first went into court, he was up to speed as to what was going on and looked at that information and literally called them out on it.
Okay, that's great. So, and if I remember correctly, attorneys who had represented you in the past were not quite as on top of getting the evidence that needed to be in front of the judge in enough time for him or her to review it before any hearings. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah,
what was happening, and I don't want to say that they're. I mean, I think it's like everything else. There's good attorneys, there's bad attorneys, and I just happen to have bad experiences. But what was happening is, I think they thought that they were just going into court. Probably like 90% of the marital disputes that happen, and thought that they were going into court and they could wing it. Mm-hmm. And they could just, try to do some sort of negotiation skills. Well, that was not the case. She had hired a pit bull, if you will, who was extremely aggressive. They didn't know what they were getting into. And so, the judges just looked at the information without really providing any strong argument for what was really going on behind their backs, and turned around and awarded them this. Now, this was happening every 10 months. I was getting hauled back into court.
Okay. And what was your biggest challenge when you made the switch from being represented by attorneys to representing yourself? What was your biggest challenge in making that leap?
My biggest challenge in taking the leap, I guess, was, making sure that I knew how the court system was going to work. Making sure that I had all of my ducks in a row, which I really had going into court with my attorneys previously, but making sure that the court had the information in plenty of time, that it was all easily read and documented for the court, so that there was not going to be a whole lot of confusion. I think what happens, and as I've learned over the years now through the experience, is there will be people, certain attorneys, I suppose, in doing their case, will try to load up the court documentation with tons and tons of things and material and pages of information, if you will. And if you think about it, the judge, I mean, how many courts, how many divorce cases do they see in a week? Well, if you present them with something like War and Peace, do you think that they're going to sit there and want to read through documentation and pages of all kinds of information? Well, I had to concisely show the court in a very brief summary that said, look at all these pages of information that they're providing, and how much of this information is not true, and how much of this information is not on the up and up. And when the judge saw that, I think that's when he really got his eyes opened up real big, and he was just like, "This isn't right."
Right. So you stayed organized. You organized your evidence and your paperwork, your submissions to the court, and you sent them to the judge in enough time for the judge to review these things before your hearings. So
right.
so you were organized. You respected the judge, respected how busy he probably is, and that he would want to be able to have enough time to review your stuff. So that was one thing that you did to handle the situation, correct?
Yeah, I made sure that the information was concise, it was to the point, and it showed the inconsistencies, plus it was in the court's hands in plenty of time. That was a big thing, because I had found that one of the times, the last time I had gone to court before, I had done it on my own with my last attorney. She had turned it in on Friday, and court was on Monday, and they do everything electronically, so none of that information was put into the court system. Okay. None of the information that we had given was put into the system.
It wasn't enough time. Okay, so that was one thing that you did, and you did obviously a great job. How about your fear? Were you totally fearless going into court and advocating for yourself?
That was the one thing. The first time I went into court, I was like, wow, this is what you see on TV. What's real? What's not real? What's the experience going to be like? After getting beat down a couple of times, it was starting to become very intimidating, because no matter what we said, no matter what we had tried to show, it was a losing effort. And again, I was getting called back every 10 months. So when I decided to represent myself, there was some fear, some trepidation to it, but once I had all of my ducks in a row, and I had my game plan, and I knew what we were going to do, and I knew how we were going to present this, and I knew all of the inconsistencies, I knew how the other side operated now. Once I had all of that stuff laid out, put together, there was no fear anymore. Now I walked in, you talk about being on the offense instead of the defense. Because what had happened before is we were always on the defense. Well, we were able to change and turn that around and be offensive in our approach. And that totally changed the outcome.
That really helped. Okay.
Big
Do
time.
you remember a time when you were sitting in court and your ex or her attorney was perhaps testifying or talking to the judge, giving their arguments, giving their evidence, and you heard something that maybe wasn't true?
Oh, I heard all kinds of things that weren't true, and it discouraged me with the court system to have people who are supposed to be servants of the court walking in and saying the kinds of things that they do. So that being the case, but that being the case, you just kind of you listen to it, you don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, and then when it's said and done, you present the evidence, you present the facts. And once you present the facts, then you don't have anything left to worry about. Because when you've got the facts in your pocket, they can say whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
If they're just saying things for the sake of saying things, that doesn't make a difference. It's all about facts.
Okay.
So if they're not presenting the facts, I had the facts, I had the paperwork, I had the documentation to back it up.
So even though you heard your ex and or her attorney saying things that weren't true, you were able to control your emotions, because I can completely understand how you could be sitting in a courtroom and hear somebody say something about you that's not true, and then you would start to get angry, your emotions would start to rise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, those things go through your head, but I think once you get into that setting and they can say whatever they want.
Right.
But if you've got the paperwork, documentation to back it up, it takes away their credibility. Then they have no credibility anymore.
Okay.
And so
okay, yeah.
that was very calming, if you will.
Great, yeah, and I can see how that would be, so that if somebody's saying something that isn't true, and you don't have to get angry. What you do is you just when it's your turn to speak, then you point the judge to the attention of the evidence that you have with you. So preparation and organization are key, would you say?
Yeah, preparation and organization, having all of your stuff, and what also helped for me was all of the things that they did. And again, they piled on tons and tons of information, or allegations, if you will. And I had a separate file for each thing, so that whenever it got brought up, I just had to open it up and say, here's the documentation. Here's the documentation.
And you were able to anticipate this, because you had seen this, this dynamic in court happen before. So you knew it was going to happen, and you could anticipate, and then you were able to kind of shore up your arguments by this organization.
Right.
Yeah. So for anybody else who's out there who might be watching this video or watch it later or read a transcript, do you have any words of wisdom or any tips for anybody else who might be representing themselves in court who's in a legal abuse scenario like you've been?
Most importantly is document everything. Document everything. You don't think that you need to have all of that stuff, but just document every little thing and keep it in an easy to find file, so that when it gets brought up, because eventually it will, that's what the abusers do in these situations. You've got the documentation to back it up.
Perfect. Document everything. So
everything.
Perfect. And keep it organized so that you can find it. It's
right.
not, it's one thing to document everything, but then if you don't organize it, you can't find it later, then it's not going to be much use to you. So document and organize. Very good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Anything else, John? Before I let you go?
No, it does. I guess for anybody who's going to represent themselves is this thought, is that you don't have to be afraid to do it. Sometimes in this case and in these cases, sometimes you're better off doing it, by yourself, in a sense, as long as you're organized, or at least have somebody that's going to take the time. Because a lot of times, I mean, I have literally spent hours working on this stuff, and you know, it would have cost me tens of thousands of dollars for an attorney for all the hours of work that I had to put into it, but it was worth it for the organizational aspect for me. Right,
right. And the attorneys didn't care as much about, not just, you know, not, I've never met the attorneys, of course, but they might not care as much about your case as you do.
Well, I mean, you know, it's I've been in business, you know, my entire career, my entire life. So, I mean, it's a business thing. I get it. They've got tons of clients that they work with, or whatever the case may be. And I think a lot of times they think that, you know, we're just going to go into court and it's going to be the same old, and we'll present our evidence on both sides and the judge will make a decision. Well, when you're dealing with an abuser, you have to understand you're dealing with a different type of personality, and somebody who's going to do things to an extreme to try to ruin your character, to try to say all kinds of things about you that aren't true. And knowing how the court system works, will try to bury things in tons of paperwork.
Right. Okay. All right. That's actually a great point to make. So yeah. So paying attention and reading what the other side submits to the court too, reading it thoroughly. So yes. Okay. All right, great. Well, thanks so much, John. Thanks for allowing us to pick your brain, I guess, and you know, get some great tips from you and some great insights to representing yourself in these scenarios. So okay. Thank you so much, John, and you have a great evening. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, and we're just going to wrap it up here, and I'm just going to, we've gone actually even over an hour, and I had only scheduled this for 30 minutes, but just really quickly, legal abuse is, I mean, obviously if you've listened to this entire hangout, you know, is a real phenomenon. It's an extension of domestic abuse when people escape abusive relationships, abusive intimate relationships, and then there's a marriage to dissolve, or issues of property to divide, support, child custody and care. You're going to be going into the legal system. You're going to most likely have a court decide some of these issues. And you know, if the person who you're divorcing or splitting up from has a personality disorder, then you can pretty much assume that the same dynamics that were at play during the relationship are going to continue to be at play throughout the court proceedings. And so it's good to know that, just simply so that you can prepare yourself for that, and to kind of anticipate that it's not going to be an easy thing, and we've also heard that the courts aren't as up to speed on these relationship dynamics as perhaps they should be. So if you're looking for the court to protect you from further abuse, that may not happen. So what you're going to have to do is to look to protect yourself, and whether that's through an attorney, or whether that's through representing yourself in court, it's possible to do that. And I think that one other tip that I would add to what Victoria Vilches, Sandra Brown, and John have already conveyed is just to keep a check on the emotions while you're in court. Make sure that you keep a check on your emotions. If the other person is pulling their normal abuse tactics, control tactics, trying to push your buttons, understand that that's what they're going to do, and understand that's what they're doing, and know that you have a choice into whether you're going to allow that person to push your buttons, whether you're going to allow your emotions to rise and to be, you know, and to become angry and indignant and perhaps even panicked. And that while you're in court, it is it is vital to your credibility that you remain in control of your emotions. And as John described, always bring it back to the facts. Always bring it back to the records and to the documents. You do not have to allow a person like that to control the court proceedings. We're going to go ahead and conclude the hangout with that. LawYouAmerica is actually designed to support and empower people to represent themselves in court. And we do so through education, through connection, and through advocacy. I hope that you will continue to tune into future hangouts. We'll try to overcome the technical difficulties later on, and also tune into our Facebook page and our website, which is LawYouAmerica.com, and Facebook, LawYouAmerica. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope that this has been a help to you. And we just say thank you, have a good night, and be well. Thank you.